Miss Seashell.
And Mr. E.
We're back again for another adventure with FOOVentures. And today we are going to be learning all about our national mammal.
Our national mammal, on par with the bald eagle as a national symbol, yeah.
And last week was our state reptile. We're just all very patriotic here. So we're looking at bison.
Yeah.
Why did I say his name 3 times?
That's the scientific name. Genus, species, subspecies.
Common name.
Common name.
It's an easy one. If you forget the scientific name for this one, boy, we'll have to work on you a little bit.
So they're getting a little bit of enrichment right now. We put one watermelon in there. It's starting to get to be hot out, and they like nice, cool watermelon. So we'll roll this one in too for them. Give them a little push and shove in. And then we'll get the camera moved up closer, and they'll get a little bit more action. I might have got a little too close with the one, so we'll see how they do. Usually like to keep them a little bit more apart, as one's a little more dominant than the other one, so we'll see some nice interactions between the two sisters going on. Lakota and Sioux, named after some Native American tribes that were typically going to be hunting these big megafauna.
All right, don't forget to ask us lots of questions, say hello, tell us where you are, and we can talk, because this is what we like to do with the live streaming. We get to hang out with you. So just so y'all know, we are in an area that you do not have access to. We're in a backup fence where our animal keepers access the animals, but we are safe here behind a giant wooden pilings that they can't get to us. But you are closer than you normally get to our bison. Pretty exciting.
I just recently read that in Yellowstone Park, where these guys are roaming free, wild bison, it's actually illegal to get closer than 25 yards to them. So really cool that we get the opportunity to see them up close and personal through this video, as we normally would not be able to. I know, I'm sorry.
So you are looking at our 2 cows. They're females, and their names are Sioux and Lakota, named after Native American tribes. Sioux and Lakota are 10 years old. 10 years old. And Mr. E, is that an old bison, or what? Tell us about their life expectancy.
So they can live quite a long time. 10 years is kind of like middle-aged, I would say, getting to be towards their middle age. They're, as a cow in captivity, are going to live much longer than they would out in the wild. But they're very social grouping animals, so they're going to have long periods of time where they're going to be in groups, in big herds, and the older individuals are going to be protected by the young individuals, and the really young babies are going to be protected by the herd, so they're very social in the way that they interact. I don't know the oldest bison on record. Michelle, do you know?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about that. Oh, look at that. That makes my mouth water for some watermelon.
Yeah.
Age difference between sisters. So these cows came to us in 2010, and it's my belief they're 5 months apart.
Yeah.
So they're not, they're not sisters.
They're not sister. They're sisters. They're half-sisters.
Well, they might have the same father. They're half-sisters.
They're half-sisters.
All right, we got it. Yes. So, yeah, 25 years in captivity maybe would be a good age. 15 years in the wild.
Yeah.
So people ask us all the time, like, why do we have bison at Oatland Island Wildlife Center?
Yeah.
Eric, why do we have bison here at our center?
And so it's really interesting. We actually have had bison in this area of the southeast for thousands and thousands and thousands, and maybe even millions of years. You see prehistoric fossilized bison skulls come out and wash out of our amazing rivers in Georgia. So they've been here a long time. And even up until about 220, 225 years ago, there was actually bison in the state of Georgia. So we did have our bison roaming through the forests of the southeast, and then they were basically hunted to extinction. Extirpated is another word for that. Extirpated, yeah.
All right, Wendy has a great question. She wants to know, do they lose their horns? I don't know if Dawn, who's on our videographer today, can you get a look at Lakota over here on the right? She has a small horn and a big horn. So
Of course she does.
she actually she had some horn damage, and they don't shed them like deer shed antlers, Mr. E.
Yeah.
He uses the word horn a lot.
These are horns.
Their horns are made out of fingernail material, keratin, and they don't lose them. and well, I guess they can, but they are vascular. There's blood tissues going to them, and if they break off, it could be very bad for them. So no, they don't lose their horns, but you guys may make the association that these are females and they have horns.
Yeah, that's so weird. It's like a female individual can have horns. Why would they need horns?
Yeah, why would they have no horns, friends out there? Mr. E wants you to answer.
I mean, I'm just thinking like they don't use them to fight each other like the males do, because the males, they fight. We know that's like males, like most of the year they're like hanging out on their own, maybe in a little bachelor group. They're not with the big herd, all the females. But then when they want to get some breeding season going on, they'll come in with a big herd and start mixing. And one male say, nope, that's my territory, and they'll start fighting. And it's really, really cool is that these territorial disputes will happen from year to year in the same areas, in the same population, and that helps because then other males will get scared away and go and visit another herd, and so it's good for the population, good for genetics.
Eric, I think you should say hello to your family.
Hi, family.
Your mom said hi to you.
Mom, nice that you're tuning in. Got some good questions about bison. Maybe in our area in the Midwest, you see a lot more beefalo than bison. Charlie's here.
Charlie! Hi, Charlie.
Charlie from our pre-K is here tuning in. Nice to hear you.
Another bird alert.
Bird alert, yeah.
What do we hear? Red shoulder hawk. Wild one.
Yeah, wild red shoulder. You might see that they look a little raggedy too, a little weird looking. They don't know why it looks like they kind of like have these dreadlocks coming off almost, or like kind of looks like they're like sloughing off their fur. Weird looking.
That's awesome. It comes off in blankets. You don't even have to do any felting. It's already ready to go.
Super cool.
Yeah, they're getting hot. They're getting ready for their summer coat.
Yeah.
So they're losing that winter hair.
Michelle, will you tell me the difference between this animal and buffalo?
Oh, see, they're commonly, there's a misnomer. They call them buffalo. I've done it too myself.
Yeah. No, me too. All the time.
So when our European settlers came over and they saw this animal raising by the millions on our prairies and our plains, they went, oh, look at it, it's a buffalo, because that's what they knew. That's what it reminded them of. But the scientists disagree. It's not a buffalo. It's a cousin of the buffalo. It's a bison.
Yeah.
So you might be familiar with the African Cape May buffalo. I think there's even a European.
Yeah.
It's a European bison.
Yeah, and water buffalo in Asia.
Yeah, water buffalo.
Yeah.
We're gonna come close so you can see the.
She's hogging. That's
So
okay.
that's Sioux.
That's my fault for being a bad roller.
Give Lakota some, Sioux. Share with your half sister.
We'll get Lakota some treats here in a little bit.
So if you call them buffalo, we know what you're talking about, but just you can teach everybody that they're really called bison.
Yeah. Buffalo are
American bison.
Buffalo are typically, not always, but typically very warm weather adapted. So they live in areas that don't have a real winter season. They might have a rainy season, but they don't have a winter season, whereas a bison specifically is very adapted to live in a cold environment. They can live in areas where there's feet of snow, so 3 feet, 4 feet of snow. They use their head like a big shovel, like a big sweep, to push out of the way all of the grass, and they'll feed on that grass even if it's dead and dried up underneath the snow. They have to constantly be feeding all the time. They're also very, very much cold weather adapted in that long fur forms a blanket of tight curls that keeps them nice and warm. Nice and warm.
All right, we got more treats.
Yeah, I would go way into the pond.
Way in the pond. Okay, first I want to answer some questions that are coming in. Thanks for asking questions, hanging out with us. How old are they? So they're 10 years old. They were born in 2010. We got them in 2010, but they were already pretty full size when we got them. I'm going to throw some more treats. So remember the word herbivore, friends? Herbivores. These are herbivores. Yeah. And you know, people always ask me, I'm vegetarian, and they ask me like, how do you get enough protein? How do you get enough whatever you need being a vegetarian? I say, look at the bison and tell me how. The original plant protein right here. Protein. Got it. We'll give her one. Oh. Okay. Well, I was trying to give one to Sue. Go get it, Sue. We're Hey, apples, by the way. Apples and watermelon today.
And these are a treat. This wouldn't normally be their diet, but in the wild they do seek out sweet things, and they actually will eat fruit and other really sweet objects like berries, and they'll disperse those seeds around. One of the main reasons why we had these really beautiful prairies is because the bison would feed on them, spread them around. A lot of plants are actually adapted to be spread by these large megafauna, and when we lost them, our prairies suffered from production through agriculture, but also loss of those ability for seed dispersal through getting stuck in the bison's fur or being pounded into the ground with the hooves of their feet, or even sometimes being carried through their poop and then deposited in their poop. So we lost that species diversity because we lost our huge, massive bison herd. Some people estimate up to 40 million individuals. 40 million individuals.
That's insane.
Yeah. Bobbing for apples is pretty great.
Yeah, so bobbing for apples, this is where it came from.
Yeah, Tatanka. Yeah, my mom says Tatanka, Lakota word for buffalo, in the movie Dances with Wolves. The etymology for their name is really interesting. They think it might be from French trappers that came over that first saw them, started using the word bœuf for beef for French.
French, yeah.
And that kind of transferred or got muddled up with other words and turned into buffalo.
Bœuf in French.
Yeah, buff.
Hello, Kara and Maisie, our friends out there. Danielle has a question. Are there physical differences in the bison and buffalo to tell them apart? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So first of all, bison have that huge hump on the back of their neck. Does anybody know what that's for? That's a special...
It's full of water, right? Just like a camel.
No, Mr. E. So guys, so this is an animal that can live in all kinds of climates, and especially climates where it gets super duper snowy. And their head is the heaviest skull of any land mammal here in our country. It actually is the heaviest land mammal in North America. And they use it like a plow when they go through something like 3 feet of snow, because they have to graze, right? And so if it's covered in snow, they've got to uncover the grass. So they use that's a muscle for holding up that giant head and for sweeping that big skull around in the snow to get to the bottom. So that's one difference that they have. Any other differences?
The fur, of course, like the massive amount of fur. Usually most water buffalo, Cape buffalo, very short, very thick fur for protection, but not curly. And that curly hair is what traps the oxygen, keeps them nice and warm. What's really interesting about them, and I think my kind of favorite thing to tell the difference, is that head size and that posture. So their posture is always going to be that their head is lower almost than their shoulders up high. Whereas a buffalo, water buffalo, is going to look a lot more like a cow. And these guys kind of look like a cow, but aren't really a cow at all.
That was a fail. Okay, Daniel wants to know their lifespan. So if you're a wild animal, you don't live as long as our if you're a wild animal, you have more against you, right? So they can live about 15 years or so in the wild. In captivity, they can live up to 25 years, and these girls are 10 years old. Noah wants to know, do they enjoy swimming? Hi, 6-year-old Noah.
Yeah, swimming.
They enjoy swimming.
Swimming to cool down, swimming to maybe get from one area to the next, but not just like going out for a swim like you would maybe go to the pool. They're going to use it as a way to get places, and then also maybe as a way to cool off in a hot summer day. But maybe not, they're going to be like splashing around, playing in the water like for fun.
Yeah. Oh, watch that chewing their cud. They got that cow. Very, very similar to cattle. Mr. E, tell us a little bit about their genes. These two.
Their genes?
Yeah, about their genetic makeup. Like, are they 100% bison here, or what are they, do you think?
I got distracted by a bird, sorry. They are probably have a little bit of cow genes in them. What's really cool is they're so closely related to our domestic cow, bovine, that their population was so small that they interbred with cow in the wild, cow that got loosed, and created this kind of mixing of genetics where it's hard to find a fully genetically pure bison. So
Oh, you know what I heard?
yeah.
I heard that in Yellowstone, that is a prehistoric population.
Yeah, the ones
yeah.
in Yellowstone are probably the most pure in that they came from a Canadian population and they were repopulated there. So there's maybe about, they think, somewhere between 90 to 120,000 individuals that are pretty genetically pure, meaning that they're more closely related to what we would have seen pre settlers who brought their domestic cows over. But really kind of crazy to think about that we had this massive population that went down to a few individuals, so a genetic bottleneck. So maybe those cow genes weren't a bad thing because it enters new genes into their DNA.
Maisie wants to know, she's a great question, where do they sleep?
Yeah.
So, probably not in the water,
No.
but anywhere they want to, Maisie.
Yeah.
Maybe they're coming to your house tonight. Let us know if they do.
They love to sleep in nice soft bedding, curled up, and they also
In their food. They sleep in
they
their
would
food.
love to sleep on top of their food because that's a nice soft straw hay mixture. They like to bed down it, and then they also, I think, really love to dirt bathe and make wallows in the dirt. And so these wallows are really good for them to hang out and to bathe in as well.
So I want to tell you guys my favorite thing about bison. Bison create habitats. So we think about animals, we think about them living in habitats. Well, they actually are the creator of habitats. If you can think of what habitat they create, type it in right now. What kind of habitat? So think about habitat can be forests, they can be, let's see, oceans, ponds, meadows, marshes. So which swamps, what habitat do you think a bison creates? And if you think about the subspecies, there's two types. There's a woodland and there's a plains bison. That might give you a hint. So if you guys know the answer, type it in, tell us what you think. And how would they make this habitat? Just think about it for a second. I'm going to give you a second. I'm going to tell you. Let's see what you guys know about out there. Special thing about this animal. But the only problem is that when you take bison off of their habitat will disappear. Okay? Because the habitat will change into another habitat. Whoa, I'm getting so mysterious. Hey, your mom knows the answer. Marsha knows. It's a prairie. Stacy got it. Daniel got it. Danielle.
So
Got it.
this is great. Prairie, grassland, and plains are all almost synonymous with what we're talking about. Grasslands is probably like the big, overarching. Plains is what we like to call them in America, and then prairie is a very specific type of habitat that can get broken into different types, and depending on the soil and depending on where you're at. But prairie is so important for our bison to have.
So a prairie is a grassland, and so this is a grass-eating animal. So what they do is when they had these herds of millions roaming across, they would eat their way through these little tiny trying to grow up forests. That all the saplings and all the little trees would disappear, and it would turn into a grassland again. And then they would go to the bathroom and spread seeds and fertilize. They would grow. So pretty amazing animal that it can create a prairie, can create a grassland. Now fires create prairies too, so there are other things, but we're suppressing all those things. And when we're stopping fires from happening because of our shopping areas, our housing areas, whatever, we are going to lose the prairie. And there are animals that will only live in prairies that we could lose too. So now, Mr. E, tell us about another thing that they create on the prairies that helps other animals.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about their wallowing. What they'll do is they'll kind of roll in the dirt and scratch it up with their hooves, and they'll make a little short impression to give them a nice dust bath. This is either for, to get rid of a insect load that they have on them, maybe ticks or mites or fleas or something like that. They'll roll around in that. Might be also helpful to give it, an itch to their little scratchy skin that's dry underneath. Maybe get a little water underneath there. Maybe remove some fur. But what's going to happen is they're going to make these little depressions, and these depressions are made larger and larger over time. You can imagine 1 million individuals wallowing in an area. You're going to get some holes. Those holes will actually grass over, and then when we get big spring rains or even fall rains in some areas, these will turn into vernal pools, and these pools are used by species of toads and frogs to lay their eggs in to create habitat that can create more biodiversity in our prairies. So really cool that they give these little water sources. Also important for migrating birds too. So very, very important to have our bison in the prairies.
Yeah, so they're prairie makers. They're really important animals. It's our national animal after all, right? You know what I heard, Mystery? I heard that sometimes they wallow to show off their athletic ability when it's breeding season, so they can show the girls like, woo, look at how nimble and strong I am.
Yeah, like look at how like I can just jump up really quick.
Yeah, I can roll on my back, put my to a headstand,
super fast.
50 push-ups.
It's like breakdancing, right? Like buffalo breakdancing.
Oh yeah, that would be good. We can learn a lot from buffalo.
Yeah.
Bison.
Bison, yeah, right? Well, I used buffalo, yeah. Shouldn't have done.
We know it's okay. We forgive you, Mystery.
Yeah.
It's your nickname.
I think it's really cool too, and I don't know if it's easy to see this or hard to see this, but from a scale size, a human is like maybe like average, like 150 to 200 pounds, maybe bigger, maybe smaller, it depends. But they are very, very, very large. They might weigh, 50 times more than a human if they're a female, almost 100 times more if they're a male. They are very, very, very large individuals.
Yeah.
I said 100, I meant 10 times.
So
10, 50 times, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I've heard they get males can get up to 2,000 pounds.
2,000 pounds?
Yeah.
That's insane. But these are females, so they're going to be a little bit smaller, almost half the size of a full-grown male.
Yeah.
Our cow is actually bigger than our bison, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, and then just remind, oh yeah, we got a little friskiness going on. It's always fun. Males and females both have horns, so you can't tell the sex by looking at horns or not. I almost said antler. I'm doing the reverse of you, Mr. Eric. But you can, if you had a male and a female side by side, you might be able to tell by size. But right now, you can't tell both two females.
And then the males their hump will get larger on the side too. They'll use it for fat storage, and so it'll get bigger and larger, wider out, look like a saddle almost. And we'll have kind of bigger shoulders, but usually it's the size
How
thing.
much do they weigh? Do you know how much these girls weigh?
I think these guys are around 1,000, probably like 800 to 1,000 pounds.
They don't weigh as much as our cattle,
Yeah,
our
cow does. And we can't get them on a scale.
No.
So the way that a lot of farmers will weigh is they'll take their trailer over a big scale that's in the ground, and then they'll load up their livestock, and then they'll drive over the scale, and they can say that that's how they weigh them. But we don't have that ability to do that here, so we kind of guesstimate what they are by their size.
So somebody wants to know, do we brush them?
No.
No. This may be one of our more dangerous animals at Oatland Island Wildlife Center, just because of their unpredictability. So we don't go in with them.
Yeah, we keep hands off of them. We can brush them by offering items to them that they can brush on, like Christmas trees or rubbing posts throughout their exhibit. They'll use the fence to brush on, but typically that hair just falls off.
Yeah. And it's super soft. So if you ever come to Oatland, ask Miss Seashell if you can touch some bison hair, because we have some hair in our teaching pits. We can let you feel it. It's super soft. You think it would be like scratchy and coarse? Oh no, it's amazing, amazing stuff.
You got a question of how did they get here, meaning here to Oatland? They were like really small when they got here. What, even like 100, 200 pounds, 300 pounds?
I don't know.
They're like
about
little,
6
right?
months old.
6 months old. So they weren't nearly as big. They came in on a trailer, load them into the exhibit, good to go.
They came from Midway, Georgia.
Yeah.
Not
There
far
actually
away.
is a bison farm fairly
Yeah.
close to Oatland, though, in Darien, Georgia.
Yeah.
And they are really, really interested in producing bison meat there. So they're growing bison for producing meat there. It's a very lean, very healthy meat. They're over there. I know.
Yeah. This is Lakota. Lakota.
Yeah.
She's a little bit more subordinate
Yeah.
than Sioux, who's in from Midway, Georgia, from somebody's like petting zoo or something. I'm not exactly sure where.
Hobby Farm.
We bought them for our center. Yeah, Hobby Farm. That's interesting. So I wanted to ask a question of you guys. Okay. If you had some bison hair, what would you make with it?
Ooh.
If you were doing some primitive skill making, what would you make? Because I know that Native Americans used to use every single part of the bison when they would hunt for them. And I've actually seen awesome blankets made out of bison hair. It's pretty amazing.
They gotta make earmuffs.
Earmuffs?
Yeah. My ears always get cold.
I like their little hair on the top of their head. I want a little hat that looks just like theirs.
A little bison cap.
Yeah, look at their little hairdo.
Yeah,
Super cute.
they got a little fro action.
Why
going
do
on.
they like Christmas trees, Mystery? It's a good question.
So we talked a lot about this, and I think you guys, if you think about it, think about the morphology of the animal, why they would like Christmas trees. So we talked about the length of the skull, the number of scent receptors. They use their smell for finding lots of things, specific plants they like to eat. So it's Christmas trees. If you've ever had a Fraser fir around, any type of fir, beautiful, beautiful smell. So they're gonna really enjoy that smell. They like to rub on it for itching and scratching, and then they just like to toss it around with their head too. And I don't know if that's for fun or if that's for showing off, but one of the two.
So these bison came from Camp Tree of Life in Midway, Georgia.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I did Google it this morning, and the last news article I saw about it was from 2008. So I'm not sure if they're still open or not, but they used to be open on Saturdays. Like Eric said, it was a hobby zoo, a petting zoo, only open on Saturdays. It used to be.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on now
I haven't heard.
over there, Camp Tree of Life. So American bison, look at this. We are getting such excellent views today.
Michelle, we're going to talk about morphology a little bit, about their face and about where their eyes are. I think that'd be a cool thing to talk about.
Oh yeah. So I'm gonna ask you guys a question. Is this a predator or is this prey? Prey animal. Type your answers. Predator or prey?
Remember, it's the largest mammal in North America, so that might throw you off a little bit.
Maisie wants to make a blanket, just like me. Me too,
yeah.
Maisie and Kara.
Yeah.
Maybe we can. I might have enough saved up over time.
For crochet. Oh, yeah, they're great for crocheting.
Yeah. Danielle says Olivia's 9. Hi, Olivia. And she wants to know if they get baths. Only if they bathe themselves.
Yeah, if they want baths. They might come up to the hose when we're filling their water, and they might interact with us then. They might get a little spray if they're feeling warm that way, but they don't get bubble baths. We keep soap out of their exhibit unless we're cleaning their food and water dishes.
Stacy, good job. She says they're prey animals. So a prey animal has to have some awareness all around them, don't they?
Yeah.
They gotta know what's coming around. So what kind of animals would be a predator of a bison?
Ooh.
We talk about prey, but who's a predator? Because this is a big animal, and you have to be pretty daring to go after this animal.
Yeah.
Or at least going after their calves. Who would go after you, Sue? Nobody here, because you're so adorable.
Somebody here.
Well, oh, she just threw water all over me. So yeah, it's Abigail and Owen. You got it.
Perfect.
You got it. Courtney, Danielle, you got it. Awesome. So wolves are actually predators of calves and older bison, not of a healthy young bull.
Yeah.
Definitely not. So if you're gonna be, wolf stalking you, a little pack coming after you, you're gonna be hyper aware, and especially if you have a calf around you, you're going to, the whole herd's gonna be helpful and be aware and trying to keep that wolf at bay.
Yeah.
So what do they do, Mr. E?
They do
to
this,
protect their babies?
They do this amazing thing where they kind of herd the baby into the center of their larger group within the herd, and they put their little hind ends, which are a little bit more narrow than their front ends, into a nice circle, and they've got their horns facing out, and they've got their big heads that they can swing around, and they protect their young. Think of that head being really low. Nothing can get in towards those babies, so they protect them that way. if they were to try to run away, that's when predators have an advantage. They can run about 30 miles per hour, so they can run fast, but they're not really long distance runners. They're slow trotters. They're just plodding and constantly moving.
Yeah, so a calf is pretty susceptible,
Yeah.
but really they have this amazing ability that they can get up and walk after hours of being born. Only 2 hours.
They're what,
Pretty amazing.
they're like 50 pounds when they're born, 30 to 50 pounds when they're born. Little tiny baby bison can stand up on 4 legs and move around almost immediately.
And they have this herd mentality too. Like it doesn't have to just be mom that comes and protects them. The herd will come and protect the baby and help make that circle around the baby. Macy says they use their horns. Yes, they do. Good job.
And in smaller herds, there's also been documentation of instances where you get twins and an auntie, so a relative will actually nurse one of the twins and her young too. So they kind of spread out that nursing ability too. So they're very communal, they're very social.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a question. This is something kind of unique about. Does anybody know what albinism is? Albino. Give me a thumbs up if you know what albinism is. If you don't, we'll tell you what it is. So we'll see who knows what albinos are. So there's this. Every once in a while in nature, you'll have a bison that's born. Who knows what it is? Albino.
Purple.
No, not purple. Actually, the babies are called red dogs.
Yeah, they're like orangey red.
Because they're red in color.
Yeah.
A red dog. No, albinos are, looking all around,
Blanco.
white. And there's Native Americans really revere the white buffalo. So pretty cool if you find a white buffalo. Super sacred animal in their tradition.
And you can imagine there would have been more of them when there was millions and millions, and now with our herds really small, it's very, very, very rare. Got a little bison shower there.
Keep splashing us. It's like a wet dog. Yeah.
Oh yes. So we did get this question earlier. We did answer it. It's really confusing because if you look at this animal and you didn't know anything about bison, you say that's a boy. He's got big, big horns, big head. Looks like he's gonna be very, very, very aggressive. But these two are girls, and the girls, cows in a herd are gonna be very protective of their young, and that's why they have those horns as well.
Yeah. Cows, bulls, and calves, just like our cattle.
Mhm.
We name them the same terminology. Pretty cool. You guys have any good questions out there?
Okay, we're gonna wrap up with final questions. Make sure you get them in. We're gonna tell you that, remember, we're on channel 195, so tune in to Comcast channel 195. You can get us on the YouTube channel. You can also tell us what you want to see next week, like on Wednesday and Friday next week. We could do whatever animal you can think of, maybe not one we've already done, but something new, or a topic that we haven't done yet. Maybe you want to learn about fungus, or what's underneath a rotting log at Oatland, or birds, songbirds. It's migration right now, so
Yeah,
lots
cool
of
stuff.
cool things going on. Put some topics down there. We'll try to choose one that fits with
All
our
right, we're
schedule.
gonna end with, can you tell them apart?
Yeah.
Okay, so who's walking towards us? Oh, okay. So you look at their horns in our herd
And
of
their,
two.
and their size.
You can look at their horns. That's the easiest way for me to tell.
Yeah.
Because Sue had a horn injury. So you can tell who has a horn that's a little bit off-sized, a little bit.
Mhm.
There she is to the right, coming towards us. And Lakota does not have a horn injury. She's a little bigger. She's also more dominant.
Yeah.
She acts a little more bossy. So that's a good way to tell. Well, thank you, friends, for joining us today. It is a beautiful day out there. Please go out and see something in nature, explore, learn. Join us again next week for more wildlife
Yeah.
or plant life.
Yeah. Stay safe, guys. Go out and explore.
Keep your distances still.